Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to share to the academic community my study on the use of online technology as an alternative approach in the new normal. My study is titled Exploring the Potential of an Inquiry Based Flipped Classroom under the New Normal. So, what is the flipped classroom? Originally conceptualized in the mid 90s and 2000, it is a pedagogical model where content acquisition is done outside the class and that applications, discussions, and enrichment are done in the physical classroom. Some say it is schoolwork at home and homework at school. The flipped classroom is one of the blended learning models which make use of online technology and traditional face-to-face instruction. Although they are not the first to conceptualize this model, Jonathan Bergman and Aaron Sams implemented the flipped classroom approach so that those students who missed their lessons can catch up by watching their YouTube videos of past chemistry lessons they missed. According to them, positive results on the learning outcomes of their students were evident. There is therefore a need to explore how inquiry-based pedagogy can be incorporated with online technology and content. The knowledge of how technology, pedagogy, and content can be used to come up with a single pedagogical construct is a serious consideration in delivering instruction. Thus, two indicators can be used to assess its impact among the learners: conceptual understanding and science process skills. The study I made is a two-group pre-test post-test design. A total of 55 grade 9 students were selected for the study. Selection of the treatment and control groups was done using the convenient sampling method. The treatment group received instruction using the inquiry-based flipped classroom model, while the control group were taught using the conventional face-to-face instruction, but still inquiry-based in its pedagogy. A secret Facebook group page served as the learning management system of the experimental group. It is in the LMS that students acquire the new lessons online instead of learning them in the classroom. A conceptual understanding and science process skills tests were validated, developed, and pilot tested for this study. The period of intervention lasted for 7 weeks. The intervention covers the following topics as recommended in the current K-12 curriculum program of the Department of Education. These topics are the human respiratory system, the human circulatory system, photosynthesis, cellular respiration, and non-Mendelian genetics. Instead of watching the video of the instructor delivering the lecture online, content is uploaded in different forms. Some are in the form of videos, photos, tables and graphs, or PowerPoint slides. Inquiry-based questions accompany the uploaded content for students to process and construct the correct knowledge, leading to the current scientific understanding. When the class meets in the school, application of the concepts is done in lab activities, projects, class discussions, and board work to facilitate student engagement. What you see right now is an example of content uploaded in the Facebook LMS of the experimental group. A video of a mammalian heart was dissected and the parts of the heart were identified one by one. The video allows the student to compare certain anatomical differences between the left and right ventricles of the heart regarding their musculature. A question was placed at the end of the video to prime up their curiosity as to why the left ventricle muscles were bigger than the right ventricle. When they come to class and answer the worksheets, they will be able to relate the musculature differences to the extent of how blood will be distributed in the body. At the end of the activity in the classroom, they were able to realize that the left ventricle needs bigger muscles because it needs more force to pump blood throughout the body, while the right ventricle only needs to pump blood to the lungs only. What you see right now is another example of an uploaded lesson that the experimental group received before they come to class for the application of the lesson learned online. Aside from improving their skills in determining the systolic and diastolic blood pressure from a video shown, there were questions that allowed students to connect the measured blood pressure with the corresponding ventricles responsible for pumping the blood. It also makes students infer and explain why the systolic blood pressure is always higher than the diastolic blood pressure. When they come to class, each group uses a sphygmomanometer and apply what they have learned from the video and at the same time answer the questions they have seen in the LMS. Comparing the pre-test and post-test mean score of the experimental group, data showed that students improved significantly in their understanding of basic concepts and in their science process skills after the 7-week intervention. The same is true also for the control group in the conceptual understanding test and science process skills test. Comparing the overall performance of control and experimental groups in the conceptual understanding test and science process skills test, no significant difference was seen between their post-test mean scores for both tests. This would mean that even though the groups performed better after the intervention, no group was better than the other in the conceptual understanding test and science process skills test. What is the significance of this result? It showed that inquiry-based flipped classroom can be just as effective as the non-flipped inquiry-based face-to-face instruction. I did a sub-level analysis of their post-test mean scores wherein I obtained the post-test mean score for each topic under the conceptual understanding test and for each skill under the science process skills test for both groups. Comparing the post-test mean score of the experimental group with the control group for each topic, I found out that the experimental group performed better than the control group under non-Mendelian genetics. No significant difference was seen between the science process skills test post-test mean score of the two groups for each skill that were measured. What could be the possible reasons why the experimental group outscored the control group in non-Mendelian genetics? There are three possible explanations. First, the nature of content. The subject matter already has a prerequisite subject, which is Mendelian genetics, where the concept of dominant and recessive genes, as well as the use of the Punnett squares in calculating the probabilities of each pair of alleles, have been taught in the earlier grade. The skills learned in Mendelian genetics are still useful to understand some examples of non-Mendelian transfer of traits from parents to offspring, like the ABO blood types. Second, the choice of learning management system. The use of Facebook as the secret group page serving as the LMS made content more accessible and facilitated better student engagement. Studies have shown that a positive relationship exists between the use of a popular social media platform as the LMS and the magnitude of student engagement, while traditional LMS failed to make a significant impact on their level of involvement. Thirdly, the manner of uploading content did not use videos, PowerPoint slides, or pictures. Instead, textual and tabular information was uploaded with the corresponding inquiry-based questions. When internet signals become weaker, videos or content with pictures may not show up, therefore undermining student engagement. The manner of presenting it would be the most appropriate representation of content to be learned. This is an important finding because student engagement is related to student achievement. What can be learned from these findings? The positive impact of the inquiry-based flipped classroom on students' conceptual understanding can be further improved if nature of content, manner of uploading content, and choice of learning management system are appropriate and do not pose an obstacle to one another, thereby optimizing its effectiveness in delivering significant learning outcomes. Under the framework of technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge by Mishra and Kohler, the interrelatedness of technology, pedagogy, and content is a critical consideration. Thus, these three must not be viewed as separate entities. Pearson's correlation was done to see the relationship between science process skills and conceptual understanding in biology. A correlation coefficient of 0.646 indicates a strong positive correlation between the two variables. This would mean that an improvement in students' science process skills corresponds to a significant improvement on students' conceptual understanding in biology. This positive correlation between science process skills and conceptual understanding was also observed among high school students in a physics lesson. Other studies have different findings regarding the impact of the flipped classroom model. An impact study on problem-based learning using the flipped classroom approach showed that there was no significant difference between flipped PBL instruction and non-flipped conventional PBL instruction. Another impact study was done comparing flipped 5E model with non-flipped 5E learning cycle and showed that no significant differences were found between the experimental and control groups. However, researchers were not able to make a valid comparison on the impact of the two approaches as the researchers admitted in the paper that the reliability of their instrument was relatively low. These studies have not investigated further its impact by sublevel analysis, which compare mean scores of the experimental and control groups for each lesson taught in the entire unit or quarter. What researchers did not see is that content is best delivered not only with appropriate pedagogy, but also with appropriate technology suitable for the content. Researchers from the previous study I mentioned only reported overall post-test and pre-test mean scores and no mention of pre-test and post-test mean scores for each lesson in the entire course. It is possible that there could be certain lessons where the experimental group outperformed significantly the control group. By sub-level analysis of each lesson taught in the entire intervention, researchers can further discover which online content uploaded in a certain LMS and presented in a certain manner promotes student engagement. Doing so provides valuable information in the pursuit of optimizing the impact of the flipped classroom model. These assertions are supported by the TPCK framework of Mishra and Kohler, the merging of technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge to come up with a powerful pedagogical construct is a critical consideration every instructional designer must take into account. It is therefore an imperative that discretion in the use of technology in the teaching learning process must be observed. Ogunbase stated that in the use of web-based learning environments, neglecting pedagogical usability and design could lead to a failed learning experience. Critics of the flipped classroom model hold certain assertions against it. They claim that this pedagogical model only reverses the delivery of lessons as the online content delivered are usually lecture-based. However, what they do not understand is that flipped classroom models are opportunities for instructional designers to make content more appealing to learners. Furthermore, the flexible learning environment of the flipped classroom model can also address the varied learning styles of students. Another assertion of critics is that teachers are ill-equipped in delivering lessons online because they lack the necessary training. What these critics have overlooked is that Jonathan Bergman and Aaron Sams, two of the early pioneers of the flipped classroom model, were chemistry teachers and not IT specialists. Furthermore, creativity, which is an essential component of curriculum and instruction, is dependent mainly on the teacher's mastery of content knowledge. Thus, upgrading teachers' content knowledge, which is the teacher's personal responsibility, is the more important matter to be addressed. In summary, based on the overall pre-test and post-test mean scores of the conceptual understanding test and science process skills test, inquiry-based flipped classroom can be as effective as non-flipped inquiry-based instruction. The inquiry-based flipped classroom model can be a contingency measure in case of limited contact time due to class suspensions, holidays, or other unforeseen events. Based on sub-level analysis, where the experimental group performed better than the control under non-Mendelian genetics, it is possible that inquiry-based flipped classroom can be made more effective if these considerations are taken into account. These are nature of content, manner of uploading the content, and the choice of learning management system. And finally, based on the correlation coefficient obtained, it can be concluded that there is a positive correlation existing between science process skills and conceptual understanding in biology. This would mean an improvement in science process skills has a corresponding improvement in students' conceptual understanding in biology. Here are the following recommendations. Inquiry-based flipped classroom models can be used to cover topics when opportunities for face-to-face instruction are limited. The flexible learning environment of the flipped classroom model can be utilized to teach topics that require mastery of certain skills when attaining proficiency is difficult due to the limitations of in-class instruction. Academic supervisors must motivate their teachers to prepare inquiry-based lessons with emphasis on science process skills to foster better understanding of the concepts. For education researchers, Researchers can conduct quasi-experimental research on the impact of flipped classroom models on students' concept retention to further explore other advantages that the flipped classroom model may deliver. Thank you.